So we're in your training room, your competition room, and I'm noticing all these banners on the walls. Tell us what these banners mean.
When you compete at nationals, there's a very large conference room, and all of the other teams in your same division are there in the room. So to help identify to everybody else who's in which different area in that room, you have these banners that say Troy High School or North Hollywood, and so after the competition, they're yours. The very first year that we went to nationals, the banner that said Troy High School, Fullerton, California, I said, we got to take that home. And we did. And so that's just been one of our things, and that every time we go, we make sure that we bring our banners back. But now that I teach cybersecurity during the day, I have my own classroom focused on cybersecurity and computer science. And so it's part of my room. And all my students come in and they go, I'm in cyber defense now. So
I look at these banners and I can't help thinking of a sport where you go into a gym and you see the banners hanging from the rafters. Do the students that play in CyberPatriot treat it with as much passion and as much excitement as if they were playing a real sport?
they do. The past 3 weeks, we've expanded our practice days to include Thursday, but there's nothing. It's not a mandatory day. There's nothing structured. The rooms are open, and the vast majority of the teams come in and they use their time very well. I had a coach from another team ask what kind of checklist we were using for one of the images. And so I asked the team that was sitting next to me, I'm like, well, what are you guys using for this checklist? And they said, well, we took a generic checklist and now we've tailored it to the specific image that we're going to see in the semifinal round, but we've researched it. So in other words, I didn't give them a checklist to start with. They're doing their own due diligence, their own research. They're becoming experts really in their field. Which is going to help them during the competition because you don't really know what to expect.
Is the checklist something equivalent to having a playbook, to having kind of if you're playing baseball, having an understanding of what the players are like and what the pitches are like and how to play against the opponent? And if you have a football playbook, it's how you're going to run your plays and how you're going to defend. But in this, you're kind of playing against the operating system, or you're playing against the scores that everyone else gets. But is there something
I would say
to that?
that the checklist is more of the plays. So they're creating their own plays. Mm-hmm. And then once the checklist is assembled, then they figure out what the priorities are. Okay, in the first 10 minutes, what are we doing? In the first 20 minutes, what are we doing? In the first 30 minutes, what are we doing? And so they're prioritizing different elements of their checklist. And I mean, as a coach, we use the term coach, but it doesn't work correctly to a sports analogy because during the game, I can't call a timeout. I can't call a different play. Mm-hmm. They have what they have. So it's like the basketball team that's out there about to run a play, except that play lasts 6 hours long. And I'm not allowed to call a timeout. Mm-hmm. So, it's how well are they able to use their own tools.
Do you ever watch a team play and wish you could call that timeout?
All the time. All the time. Last round, I had some middle school teams that completely locked themselves out of a particular image. And then you ask the question, okay, so why are you locked out? We don't have a password. You didn't write your password down? No. Okay, good luck. You can't do that much. So
I talked with one of the middle school mothers, and she's really happy that her son is playing in this. And I get the feeling that it's kind of like a sport for those that don't want to play or aren't as comfortable playing a traditional regular sport, but they still feel like it's a sport. When you go to the middle schools, how do you promote this to them?
Well, first of all, I have kids that play sports and cyber. I have the starting center for our basketball team. He's 6'7", and he's taken my cyber defense class, and he's on a cyber defense team. So I have tried to make being on one of my cyber teams available for anybody who wants to play and do other things while they're in school, whether it's junior high or high school. So I mean, our expectation is they come 1 day per week. Well, if it's only 1 day per week, you can kind of build around that and do the other things. But I have several who, this is their activity after school, which is kind of their sport. So yes.
When you started talking to the administrators at middle school, did they have concerns?
They really don't. I made a presentation to a middle school yesterday, and my 3 points to them on my the part of the presentation where I said this is what success looks like. It was you have your students in a high school setting being taught by and working with other high school students, and they're working together as a team. So that's what they're doing. Now, while they're doing that, they happen to be doing cyber defense, but from a principal's perspective, they're like, these students are already at the next level, at the high school level, they're comfortable with their surroundings, they're not fearful of what what high school might be to them. They've worked with high school students, they're like, they can see themselves being here and being successful in high school. So yeah, it's really easy.
Last year, we had one of your teams play in the qualifier for the collegiate cyber defense competition.
Yes.
So for your high school kids, do they want to start seeing what the college kids do? And is it a true pathway where if you start in middle school, you can start working with your high school? If you're in high school, you can start working with your college?
Well, I recruit middle school. I start them early. I had 6th graders for the first time this year and wasn't quite sure about how much they could absorb and how long they could last. But in the first round, it was a Saturday evening. They finished at 8:30 p.m. And there was one thing that was really kind of stumping them. So I got them together, and they willingly they stood right around me as I showed them how to solve that particular problem. And this is after they've been working on it for 6 hours. So I'm like, okay, so they're smart enough, and they have the mental endurance to be able to handle this. And my students are very competitive. They know there's a college environment there. They know that it's tougher, much tougher on an order of magnitude than what they're seeing now. But it's not just about the competition. This is their passion. This is what they want to do after college. And so they're concerned about, hey, where do I go find internship opportunities so I can see what that work experience is like and how it feels. And then, college is a natural follow-on.
Troy has a very strong internship program. I believe you require students to get internship experience. Have you had any communication with employers who have said we are glad that the students are doing this hands-on activity in addition to what they do in the classroom?
Generally, they're amazed. Like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that first of all, that you're offering these opportunities to high school students. And then when they see what their abilities are, they're like, oh my gosh, can I just hire them now? But my struggle is being able to our struggle is being able to get through the door for the very first time, because a lot of companies have this no minors policy. To them, an intern is a college student, future immediate hire, and so for a high school, they're like, we don't really see, we've never done this before. Okay, you've never done this before, but now you can do it for the first time. Let us have one student come in and let that one student amaze you, and then you'll be asking me for 2 or 3 the next year and 4 or 5 after that.
You've also created curriculum. I believe you have a full cyber defense pathway going through high school now. How did that come about?
2 years ago, we were in the midst of our first year working with Ladera Vista's middle school cyber team. And what started in September with 5 students grew to 25 by December. They brought their friends because they were having such a good time. And so I introduced that to our school leadership and said, look, this is pretty amazing that I've got these 7th and 8th graders who are coming here and they're comfortable, but they see themselves wanting to come to Troy, and they understand that there's life doing this after Troy. So why don't we offer some academic classes on this? Because the other thing I'm seeing too is that our grads go to college, like Cal Poly, and they're going to major in cybersecurity and they're going to work in the field. So let's make something formal now. And so the school said, who else is doing it? Nobody. Okay, but we're an innovator. Let's go and innovate. So I've partnered with Coastline College. I've taken 6 of their semester-long classes, and I've paired them together so we have 3 year-long classes. It's a work in progress, but the idea is that, my students have demonstrated to me they are more than capable of tackling college-level work and being successful with that. So it's like, why not?
Is the goal eventually to have something like an AP program for cybersecurity?
My students and my parents in my school understand that we're so far ahead of the game that AP is going to catch up to us. Yes, we would love to support and to see an advanced placement course in cyber defense, mainly because it will help spread the word to so many more other schools out there that cyber defense is important, that it's a field that students should take a look at. So that when, that's one of those things that they think about for college and then life after college. Anything that has the AP brand on it, this is important. So, yeah.
This is a team competition. This is a co-ed team competition. Do you see value in what they do together and having diversity, having boys play, girls play together on the same team? What do you see coming out of this in addition to the skills?
Not only do I have a diverse team makeup, but the computer doesn't care who you are. Doesn't care what your gender is, your skin color, your age. For the past 2 years, I've taken a young lady to nationals. She's been in a wheelchair. Again, the computer didn't care. So that's an awesome part of not only the competition, but what this being able to work in cybersecurity is all about. As far as having a mixed team, I find that friends don't. If you're on a team with just friends, you're not going to do as well as a team that has talent, but also has the ability to work together. And I firmly believe that females look at problems differently than males, and we're trying to solve problems. This weekend we're doing the semifinals. If you're in the platinum tier, you have to find and fix up to 200 different vulnerabilities. The males are going to be able to solve a certain part of that, and from their perspective, they'll approach those problems a different way, but females are probably going to approach it from a different way. And if they're on the same team, that means you get more points. And so, yeah, it's great.
How are your teams doing this year? You started off with how many teams?
So we have 33 high school teams, and we started with 12 middle school teams. We're down to 10 middle school teams because some of the middle school students started and found that this wasn't the right thing for them. This weekend, of those 10 middle school teams, 9 are still playing in the semifinals. I have 21 of our high school teams that are playing. I think I have 8 teams that are nationally ranked in the top 10 amongst the 3 different categories. So we're having a good year.
What is your goal for the finals?
My goal is to take 5 high school teams and a middle school team. So that would be 6 out of 28 teams that are at nationals. And that's not a long shot.
From one high school?
From one high school and one middle school.
So I have talked to people about how many students you have, and they can't believe it. How do you manage so many teams and have so many middle schools that are working with you? How do you handle those numbers?
Well, the Navy taught me a lot. So I was in the Navy for 21 years. I found that if I believed and gave responsibility to my sailors, that they would rise to the occasion. So here in CyberPatriot, in cyber defense here at Troy, I have 17 seniors. 12 of them have stepped up and said, we're going to help. We're going to do more than just play. We're going to be part of what's going on. So Four of them are doing Windows, four are doing Linux, and four are doing Cisco. So I call myself the chief cat herder. So on a practice day, I'm rotating between the three rooms to make sure the rooms are unlocked, people are there, people are on task, that, if there's any issues, I'm there to try to help fix them. But, our seniors have several years of experience, and they're able to, and they enjoy the chance to help others learn something that they're passionate about. But in that process, they get smarter themselves because they have to be able to explain all the things that that might have been intuitive to them, but now they have to explain to others why it may not be intuitive.
Is this truly peer learning? You're not the one at the front of the room that's teaching them this. They're learning from each other?
Well, not only that, but when I have a middle school student come in and they see that there's a senior up there, certainly there's an age difference, but to them it's a reachable age difference. So as a 6th or 7th grader, they're like, okay, there's a senior. Well, at some point they were my age, not that long ago. I could be them in a couple of years, and so I have 41 juniors. Okay, all right, juniors, who's going to step up next year? So it has grown in the years, but that also means that I have more talent to draw on.
Someday I would love to see this be a spectator sport. But even now, you mentioned that you're going to have everybody get together at the end of the day tomorrow. Is there some real excitement in watching that national scoreboard?
I have parents who are refreshing their phones while their child's here. I know today that I have teams who are playing on Sunday who are refreshing their phones, trying to, all right, how high has the bar been raised? Who's playing already? And I mean, I've done it myself. So when we finish up tomorrow, it'll probably be about 5 o'clock with 2 hours left in the competition, and we will take notice of who's still playing and what their scores are. Hopefully at that point we'll have a couple of Troy teams that are in the top 10 in their different categories, because that's the goal. It's like, okay, are we going to make it or not? There's one part of the score that's unknown, and that's the network security, but still it does give you a sense of if you're even in contention or not. So we've had a really good year, consistent year, but everybody starts with 0 points tomorrow.
When you're down to the wire with the scores and you're looking at the other schools, are you truly feeling that you're competing directly against other schools?
You do at nationals because they're in the room. Here it's remote, so you don't get that sense. Mm-hmm. That they're out there, but you don't know if they're pulling their hair out. You don't know if they're whooping for joy because they got extra points, or if they're disappointed. So that's the one part that you're like, wish I could see them. And the other thing is, unfortunately, the scoreboard just has numbers. Mm-hmm. Now I happen to know what certain numbers mean as far as schools, but why not tell us who they are? So
next year, more students, more teams.
We will, just because that's what we do here. I'm going to have 3 middle schools. Each middle school will have 5 teams. High school wise, I'm still waiting for that kind of break-even mark. But we had 230 this year. Honestly, the 30 kids I didn't keep were ones who really weren't that good about coming to practices. So,
What is it that a school needs to do to support a program like this?
The schools need to have a cyber champion. It really doesn't matter where they come from. It can be a parent, can be an administrator. Preferably, it's a teacher. But they need to have somebody who's there to advocate for the students, somebody who can work with the school and the district and the district's IT personnel, so that you can get the support that you need from a computer and a networking standpoint. And somebody who can advertise and recruit and do the things that you need coaches to do. And somebody who's willing to stick it out for a couple of years.
Does it get better each year?
I love what I'm doing. I really love what I'm doing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.